Yo, what's up, dudes? How's it going? I had to do a quick opening. This is going to be a really long video if my earlier attempts are any indication. So how you been? I haven't been on in a little while. I got busy with work. So I finally got that all straightened out. That's out of my way. And I can come back and work on videos. And there's going to be a lot coming up. One of the things I'll be doing is the Rosen Digital cabs. They're impulse responsors. They're amazing. I'm running one right now. Really, really love their stuff. So, but in the meantime, an easier and quicker video for me to do is, that wasn't that easy, was my top 10 albums. I think the criteria I'm going to use is the top 10 most influential on my guitar playing albums. So Robert Baker, my good buddy, Robert Baker, had challenged me to the top 10 albums, and so I stuck with ones that have been the most influential on my guitar playing, because it's just too many. Top 10 pop albums, rock albums, metal albums, jazz albums. I mean, it's so wide open that I needed to narrow it down with some criteria, and it was influence on my guitar playing. So these albums are mostly very old because I was influenced mostly when I was much younger. So number 10, we have Kiss Alive 2. And it really was the solo to shock me. That was like the most amazing thing. I had the album in '77. I got it for Christmas when I was 11, and when I heard Ace's solo on the live Shock Me, I was like, well, this is a rock star. You know, I mean, I had heard like the Beatles and other players, but I had never heard anything like that. Never, ever, ever even close to anything like that. And two techniques that came out of that solo that I use in my playing all the time are pinch harmonics. I mean, who is doing pinch harmonics, right? Like that. And 77, and tapping. You know, he does this big tapping thing. And again, who was doing tapping in 1977? Van Halen didn't come out until a year later. So between the pinch harmonics and the tapping, it was huge. So Kiss, and then they had that B-side, you know, that extra side, other than the live album, where it was. You know, these great studio tunes that they did, and that's got some of Ace's best playing on it. You know, there's at least two tracks, that one, Rocket Ride, and the one before it. I can't think of the name of it, but it's a Gene song. And Ace's solo on that is like really, really good. He was really peaking then. All right, that was number 10. Number 9 is Surfing with the Alien by Joe Satriani. When that came out, it was really hope for every guitar player who like wanted to be an instrumental guitar player band, you know. I mean, he was it. So it was really a break from the sort of the neoclassic. He really did meld sort of like the things that I liked about Steve Vai and Van Halen and Yngwie Malmsteen sort of all into one. And you know, his melodies were just so great. It's such a good album. It was hard to choose that over Black Swans and Wormhole Wizards as my favorite Satriani album. I knew I had to give Satriani a nod because I just love his playing so much. But in terms of influence, I couldn't really say that Black Swans and Wormhole Wizards, which came out in 2010, was very influential on my playing because it was just a few years ago. So this was, you know, here's the thing. I learned that song a while ago, and then I found out years later I was playing it completely wrong. So I've never really learned the right way, so never mind. Anyway, Surfing with the Alien. Number 8. ACDC, Highway to Hell. ACDC had to be on the list. And it was down between this and Back in Black. And it was, if Highway to Hell is the speed of light, Back in Black is 99.9's the speed of light. Right? Can never quite make it, but it's close. So I think for Highway, I like the guitar tone better on Highway. I think it's meatier, and it sounds more like a straight-up Marshall. I think you got a little bit slightly more distorted on the next record, on Back in Black. I like Bon. I'm a Bon Scott guy, even though I really like, what's his name, Johnson there, Brian Johnson, on Back in Black, and subsequently, I really love Bon Scott on that, and just his lyrics, and I think, you know, Angus's playing is just so perfect, and it's got more of a boogie feel, and you know, so many great little, you know, riffs. And of course, like a song like Walk All Over You. You know, just had that, you know, majestic, you know, sort of sound to it. Up after Highway to Hell, my number 7 would be Led Zepp 4. It was, again, tough to choose a Zepp album, but I think 4 is when they're at their sort of their most mystical, right? With like the Battle of Evermore, and just the drum sounds on that were so incredible. But I really did just love, I have to say, like a song like Rock and Roll was like one of the first songs I ever played in a band. You know? Just so perfect, and of course, and what else? Zepp 4. Probably the first Zeppelin album I owned. And of course the solo for Stairway to Heaven is like one of the greatest solos of all time. So you got that. All right. Number 6. Black Sabbath. We sold our souls for rock and roll. I know it's a compilation album. I know it's a greatest hits album, but I didn't know it at the time, and it was recommended to me by a friend of mine at in grade school, in middle school, really, and I fell instantly in love with it. So between Iron Man, yeah, I know he plays it here. I like to play it here. Okay, so deal with it. all the great hugely influential. I wound up buying the albums, of course, later on, that all those songs are on, you know, Paranoid and the original Black Sabbath and Volume 4. But this was really my first one. And this was the one, I mean, I owned this for years before I wound up buying my next Black Sabbath. And the only reason why I bought it was because I was in a band. They wanted to do Hand of Doom. And it wasn't on that record, so I had to go out and buy Paranoid and all those other ones to fill in the gaps. But easily, We Sold Ourselves for Rock and Roll was the most influential. I owned that in like 79, so pretty early. After that is Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? Love that. And then, of course, what's his other one? It just gets you into that shuffle feel, right? Anyway, I mean, there's so many. I mean, Foxy Lady is on that. I mean, is there an earlier metal tune? You know, I mean. Love Foxy Lady. So easily, Hendrix, Are You Experienced is my favorite of all the Hendrix albums. After that, we have at number 4, Holy Diver. When Dio, and trust me, this could have easily been a Black Sabbath Dio, album, Mob Rules, Heaven and Hell. But I wanted to give Vivian Campbell his due for influencing my playing. And, he had the muting and and he had the pinch harmonics, and his playing was so incredible. I'm just a huge fan of Vivian Campbell's playing. And so I had to do Holy Diver. When that came out, we were all wondering what was he going to do, and then after we got it, we were like, I think Ronnie's going to be okay. Because that was a tour de force when that came out. That was huge. Rainbow in the Dark, huge. And got airplay, right? Oh, and everyone can all thank Quiet Riot, because it was Quiet Riot that got metal on the radio. Quiet Riot and Motley Crue, right? They were slowly getting metal, like a pop metal on the radio, and it paved the way for guys like Dio to get their songs on the radio that might otherwise not ever be on there, you know? So it's sort of odd, right? Because people don't give, at the time, they would sort of say that, you know, Dio was the more stately, you know, guy had the pedigree, where these other bands were new. No one really knew about them. And, but it really worked in reverse, I think. So, Holy Diver, an amazing album, had a auto-reverse cassette deck in my car, and that thing would go on auto-reverse and stay in the deck for weeks at a time. And I would just listen to that over and over and over again. So, huge influence. So, not surprisingly, my number 3 is Blizzard of Oz. Something like that. I think that last one was the best of the 3. Anyway. Yeah. Blizzard of Oz. Again, Heaven and Hell was out before Blizzard of Oz came out, if I remember correctly. So no one knew what, you know, what's Ozzy going to do now that he's gone from Black Sabbath. And when this came out, you know, as much as Ozzy was, you know, the focus and everything for most people in the guitar world, it was Randy. You know, here was this guy who would come out and was just blowing us all away with his playing. And to me, in my world, in my book, and everyone's book is different, it goes Hendrix and then Van Halen and then Randy Rhoads. So, you know, in terms of pioneers, I really credit Randy not for starting the neoclassical movement, you know, but for really bringing classical guitar to sort of metal music that wasn't really there, especially on Diary of a Madman. This easily could have been Diary, but I went with Blizzard of Oz because of D, because of Mr. Crowley, you know. So, such amazing playing by Randy, and you know, and it goes to show you how much it's held up, because Crazy Train is still a popular song to this day. I heard it on the radio yesterday. So much awesomeness in that one album. Hugely influential in my playing. That gives us to number 2, which might be a surprise for some people, but for me it's Pink Floyd, The Wall. Hugely influential in my life, not just my guitar playing. Was it really a turning point of like understanding that songs could be made for something other than just mindless enjoyment if you really paid attention to it, the lyrics, everything about it. So The Wall, huge part of my life. I love David Gilmour's playing. One of the proudest moments of my life was when I did a gig and I got off stage and some guy came up to me and said, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed your playing. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. He's like, you know, you sound like David Gilmour. And I was elated. You could not have given me a bigger compliment. So that's where I stand on David Gilmour and his playing on The Wall. You know, the solo Uncomfortably Numb, the stuff for Another Brick in the Wall. It goes on, Thin Ice, and then of course the lyrical content and the satire and all that stuff. It just all works together and turns into just a masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece. I wore out my first copy in the year. Bought it in winter of 79-80 when it first came out. Upon recommendation by an older kid, I ran right out and bought it. And that leaves us to number one. And there can only be number one. And that's my number one. And that is Van Halen number one. When that came out, he just changed. He was a complete game changer, a complete paradigm shift in what it meant to be a good guitar player. The world wasn't the same after he came out. It really wasn't. Between the tapping, the pinch harmonics, the dive bombing, just the sheer balls that he played with. I mean, nobody was doing that. Nobody, right? I don't care. You can name me a dozen guitars. Trust me, no one's on the level that he is. He was just a complete game changer, and we loved it. We couldn't get enough of it. And I bought that album very early on, probably right around the time the second album came out. And everyone was so into it, and they said, "Listen, if you want to be a guitar player, you really got to listen to Van Halen." And I'm okay. And there was already a lot of buzz going around about it, and I went out and got it. And of course, you listen to, and the same thing when I listened to that Ace Frehley solo. It was hard to imagine. It was hard to visualize how they were playing it because it seemed to go by so fast. So when I heard Eruption for the first time, it was almost like confusing, you know. I mean, here I am. I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and I'm listening to Eruption for the first time, and it was just hard to conceptualize just even what that looked like. You know, it's like I was like, what? So, and then the songs are so good. And of course, he's doing like. I mean, who's playing chords like that? Nobody. Everyone was. No, they're playing power chords. So, and the other thing is, and this should not be lost on anyone. You know, Van Halen played to the chord changes, and you can hear it on Ice Cream Man. As they change chords, he changes his notes just slightly. You know. He goes from like major to minor and then back again. So he knows what he's doing. He really does. It might be solely from ear, but I doubt it. I know he took a lot of piano lessons as a kid, but he was one of the few players, and jazz players have told me, they're like, the only one who really plays the changes that we can hear is Van Halen. He literally plays the changes. He might be doing it by ear, but he's playing those changes. And you can totally hear it. And, unfortunately, they didn't get a lot of airplay. They didn't really get big until Women and Children First. That's when I heard them on the radio the most. And I was around. I was listening to the radio back then, way into it. Yeah, you heard You Really Got Me, which was an amazing cover. And, you would hear Dance the Night Away once in a while, but not really. They didn't really get airplay until Women and Children First came out. And The Cradle Will Rock and Everybody Wants Some were sort of hits. And then all of a sudden they started to look at their back catalog and playing more and more songs from it. And then they got sort of pretty big, when Mean Street came out. They definitely got higher with the song Mean Street. And then the few covers on Diver Town, but it wasn't until 1984. When 1984 came out, they were huge, just huge. I saw them on that tour twice in one weekend. And I'll have to do a whole video just on that concert because I got a lot of details about that one. Anyway, all right, guys, that's it. That's my top 10 albums. Kiss Alive 2. Joe Satriani, Surfing with the Alien, ACDC, Highway to Hell, Led Zeppelin 4, Black Sabbath, We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll, Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced, Dio, Holy Diver, Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne, Pink Floyd's The Wall, and Van Halen by Van Halen. I'm supposed to nominate a couple of other people to do this. So let's do my buddy, PDXGuitarFreak, and my other buddy, Garrett Peters. All right, so you two. And good luck, because this was really hard. I'd love to hear your top 10 as well. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. And I got a whole bunch of videos cooking. I'll be back up really soon. You're going to be sick of me really soon, because I'm going to be throwing up a ton of videos. But until next time, as always, rock on.